I hope you guys can hear me well, right? Cool. So thank you for staying with us. It's a bit late in the evening, but thank you that you guys have spent the time with us, and hopefully the earlier sessions have been insightful. In this session, primarily, we're discussing AI. There's no conference which is over these days without discussing the GPT LLM framework and the AI. So the idea is to assess the impact of it on entertainment, gaming, media, right? And we have a gentleman here to help us with that discussion, right? I think to start with, it'll be good to understand, say, how AI, generative AI, is impacting the different industries that you guys come from. And we can keep it brief to just a broader perspective on the impact that you're seeing within your business, within your industry. And I think we can take the conversation forward from there. Yeah. Anybody who wants to take a shot at it? Yeah.
Thanks, Dhruv. Is it okay if I actually look at the audience and talk, because they've actually spent a lot of time here?
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you. To begin with, I'm sure there's a lot of conversation around data, around intelligence, maybe customization, personalization with respect to AI. But I'll tell you something very interesting, okay? And honestly, it's an intern who taught us, and obviously these are the guys who are thinking way out of the box. We actually have a team which comes up with concepts that are generated and derived out of ChatGPT. I don't know, I'm guessing most of you have used ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
You can actually go in and put in a brief that this is the kind of a story that you want. You can say, I want so many twists. I want this kind of an ending. Leave it open for season 2, okay? You can say horror. You can say which city you want it to be contextualized. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised with the kind of results it throws up. I mean, sure, it's not refined. It's largely raw, but you have the intelligence inside within the organization. You put it together, and you can keep revising it. You can keep telling it, episode 1 change this, episode 3 this, and it intelligently connects all the dots. It doesn't really leave loopholes. So, like I said, data and stuff, the big data, AI around it is interesting, and I'm sure a lot of conversations happen around this. This, for me, personally, is very exciting and also scary. Scary because I think there are people who've spent years and years honing a skill, a storytelling, and we pay a lot of money for that, right? I mean, I'm talking when I say we as a brand.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's the most exciting part for me with respect to AI. And ChatGPT is just one such platform. I'm sure there's so many more that are in the works that will probably take over ChatGPT or will work parallelly with them.
Right.
So yeah, that's probably been my experience with AI, which keeps me up all night.
So basically, creation of content in itself is something,
Absolutely.
the core business in itself is...
Absolutely, and our business works on content.
Absolutely. Tejas, anything that you would want to share?
So, similar to what Vivek said, right? Our business on the gaming side is also content-driven. Right. If content is good, you'll get users, they'll stick around, they'll play for a long time. I think what's interesting is that, given in the same context as what you're doing, right? Given a brief, it can generate a lot of different variations of that brief, right? So, and it can be taken in both the contexts. You could probably create game content out of it. You can create marketing content out of it. You can create, variations of the same game that you want to do, which might be successful. So, for example, there's a similar AI tool to ChatGPT called as Midjourney. So you can use that to create different versions of characters with, let's say, a character on a beach versus a character in the mountains versus the same character being, in a jail, and create different variations of that content within the game itself for different scenarios. So what it also helps, which obviously, like right now, it's not at a stage where it's finalized. So it's more from a thought and ideation perspective. Right. But it at least gives you a lot of direction in terms of, okay, this looks good. This is something that the team can work on. This is something that you can take ahead as a next, live event in the game, for example, right? Got it. So I think that's a very large, interesting piece on the content side. And on the marketing side, I think it's a lot of times we spend too much time thinking about what the marketing concept is going to be, what might work, and generally teams come up with 5 lines and one concept, right? take those 5 lines in one concept, put it into ChatGPT. Tell it that, okay, I want 10 variations of it now. Suddenly, you out of those 10, maybe 2 really click. So the output suddenly increases from a thought perspective. You still definitely need people to verify whether that idea will even work or not, right? Because the context is known to you, not to the system. But at least the variations become very easy for you to generate over time.
Interesting. So essentially, expansion of the thoughts that are there manually, which are coming, and you're trying to leverage AI to expand on that. That's very interesting. Rakesh, anything from your side?
Very similar to what Vivek spoke, and I will not touch upon the content side because he spoke about it already. I think I'll look at it from a perspective of how business is getting impacted.
Sure.
And I think what AI and ML are helping us do is reach the consumer better, right? Be it a consumer who has been with us, and how do we serve him better? Continue giving him value promises that will, get him, keep him engaged on the platform, to finding ways that will help us reach new consumers and new audience that is out there, right? So, in terms of being able to, the panelists were saying that in terms of dialing down ideas and figuring out what is the best way, to even at the point of time asking it very random questions which will give you, some thought starters, and then for us to then further, use our own minds to kind of dial down and figure which one of those might be the best strategy out there, right? So yeah, it's very interesting. I'm looking at it from a point of view of one, better engagement. How do I use AI to drive better engagement with intelligence that we build on our platform? Also to look at it from an external standpoint, saying that how do we win new consumers is where we see that going.
Got it. And apart from, say, taking care of the revenue and subscription, from what I understood that you're very much involved in making sense of data as well, right? So while I think a very intuitive answer is creating content via, say, AI, but when you're trying to get insights using data, right, are there any AI solutions that you're using there? Are there any tools that you're using there? Are you using any techniques which is helping you make sense of the data that, say, your application, your platform might be sitting on?
Yeah, we've looked at it at multiple levels, right? Starting from, making content choices and serving the right content for the right consumer, right? That's to make sure that the customer's life on our platform continues to grow. And, the panel earlier was talking about how hard it is for us to keep getting those consumers to keep coming back. Right. So engagement is a major avenue for us to look at from a point of view of wanting to use AI there, right, to make sure we're giving the right nudges, the right kind of inputs for the consumer to come back, right? So that's where we start. And of course, then to look at how is our content performing? What value are they seeing? What is the value that they're not seeing? And right, then to use that in further content creation, in the future, right? So what works, what doesn't work, and how do we tap into newer markets? So largely that's where we are at.
Got it. And I think, Vivek, I'll point this question to you. So you mentioned that the team is already on it. You're already doing a lot of things, right? And I think most of the organizations today want to leverage the trend. But a lot of organizations do not know how to build that culture, right? And I mean, while I ask this question to you, if anyone else has inputs here, I mean, would want to understand, say, even at MoEngage, we try and build that culture of how can I use the information that people have? How can I encourage people to use, the different possibilities? So in terms of the culture that you can drive in the organization, are there things that you're doing which is helping you guys get to a stage wherein you're already getting ideas? Are there anything that you've changed from an operational point of view which is letting you do that?
See, if I go back, let's say 10, 12 years, and my co-panelist Tejas also, we work together, so he would second that. I mean, we come from Tata Sky. Yeah. And I joined Tata Sky, I think, 2008. The biggest question I had was, why can't we communicate with the consumer? Why is it one-way communication? And the answer I got is because two-way communication doesn't exist, right? And from there to where we are today, I think there's an overload of intelligence, right? And when I was sitting with my tech head and we were trying to create the entire, we were kind of migrating platforms and trying to create what is the kind of intelligence we should be gathering. The first thing that happened is that you put everything that comes to your mind on that paper, okay? and then you realize none of it makes sense. So it's very important, and that is what we try to, even within the organization, that's a kind of discussions we're always trying to have, is anything that we're trying to seek, and if there is a certain amount of man hours that's required, what is it leading to? That's the same thing which goes for data. See, especially the category that we are in, Rakesh and I, and in fact even Tejas, there's just so much of two-way communication that you literally know when that guy is breathing, when that guy is getting up. I mean, I'm just exaggerating, but you know what I mean. What are you going to do with that data? Like, it's just so much, it's overload. So I think the interesting, or rather the point that we are trying to work very closely, and not that we have all the answers, we're still learning, what about that data is going to help us, and where is it going to lead us? And more importantly, where do we want to be? So that is, I mean, broadly, what I'm trying to tell you is that's a kind of a culture that we are trying to work. That let's not get lost in all the utter chaos that data provides. I mean, it's a boon and it also can be a curse. So that's broadly how we function.
Got it. In terms of, again, building that culture within the organization of innovating on the new technology, are you guys taking on new initiatives, anything that you guys have worked upon? I mean, anything that you would want to share on this?
So, so it's a very new field,
Right.
right? And I think a lot of us are trying to still figure out what's the best way of utilizing the opportunity it provides. Like, I was speaking to someone else, and like one of the largest opportunity that they had was they're a very small team. They don't really have a very large data science team. Now, imagine someone now having an access to analyzing things by just inputting an Excel sheet with raw data and getting something in by saying that, hey, you know what, I need a Fibonacci curve out of this. You'll need you'll need to pay like 100 grand to a data scientist outside to get that here, but you'll just get it in like $20 a month, man. So, but the con of that is that you can never verify that data.
You'll always have to come back to.
You'll have to rely on the thought that, okay, what the system is telling me is correct, right? So, but for a small team, even a bet on something which is 50% right can be a very large opportunity for them to try, versus, let's say, you know, someone like Netflix trying to do it. They can never do that.
Right.
So that's something that I'm trying to encourage as well in my team, in terms of saying that play around with it. See what you get out of it. But don't consider that as your Bible, right? Consider your own gut, your own knowledge, your own thesis as your Bible, and use that to verify what might happen.
Got it. Rakesh, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's also about generations, right? And one thing that we've come to notice is that the younger, folk in the office are the ones who are first to adopt anything that comes new. And I'm talking about campus hires that we had come on board. And the way they use the entire ecosystem of AI is just mind-boggling, right? So we could go about talking about how we will go and use it versus how they use it. But I think it's also about the comfort that they have been able to build with iterations and with work on it. And now, to bring them into real life scenarios and give them a task and then see them use those tools to really get output that would have probably, as it was being said, would have taken much longer or would have cost us so much more. I think there are great benefits to it, but at the same time, I think there's one layer that still is there, which is about the human element, that while AI might be, it might be what it is, I think there's still that human element to be able to ask it the right questions.
That's correct. Yeah. And even to some level validate.
Absolutely.
the results,
And Vivek and as well as Tejas said a little earlier, while the machine is throwing results to you, how much of it makes just common sense is also something for us to validate.
Absolutely. I think just two more questions actually. So one from more of a content point of view, so directed more towards Rakesh and you, right? Which is from a very long time we've been hearing that content personalization recommendations can be driven by AI. And within this space, there are brands which have done great and there are brands which have struggled, right? So just want to understand, say, when we look at content as a category, are there takeaways for the audience in terms of how organizations can leverage AI? And this can be a range of solutions for somebody which is a very new organization and could be the likes of I mean, probably the ones who are already doing it, Netflix and Amazon, right? So just want to focus on content recommendation and the use of AI, and what suggestion takeaways you might want to draw for the audience from that point of view.
It's very interesting, actually. I don't know how many of you are aware of this app called Zapper. It's a simple app that's installed on your phone. It obviously takes your permission, I'm assuming it does, to listen to all the noise around the phone. So when you're watching television, it actually captures the data. There is a voice trademark or whatever that's called, or watermark that it's called. It maps it back to the TV channel. Now, people who are from the broadcasting industry will know that the ratings come out once every Thursday, but it's pretty delayed. Now, this is dynamic data that you're getting, right? So something like that is happening. The reason why I explained to you is there's something even more interesting that's happening. I'm not very sure which platform is right now working on adopting it, but there are solution providers who are working on it. So we all have wearables, right? Apple Watches or multiple other brands. They actually can track your breathing, and they can figure out what is exactly the mood that you're right now in, correct? Are you happy? Are you excited? Are you bored? And then they map it to the content. Now, Netflix could, let's say, get a patch on it. Prime Video could get a patch on it. And that's data that, it's very, very valuable. It'll actually tell you how exactly is your viewer reacting to your content. So that is a level of research or development that's happening. Maybe we are 2, 3, or 5 years away, but it's an eventuality. It's not about if, it's about when. So yeah, that's
very interesting.
You're talking about, how a new app versus, somebody who's been in the game for a long time. So we are the relatively new entrants, and we are the young kid on the block in a certain way, right? So yes, we would not probably have, say, the intelligence or the capabilities of what a larger player would have for obvious reasons. Obviously, there's scale versus what we operate at. And also we have our own limitations in terms of what we can do and what we can't do. But having said that, what we have is essentially a deep understanding of the consumer we talk to. We are a regional platform, so we understand what goes in the Telugu mind space or what goes in the Tamil mind space. Now, how do we bring that intelligence into play, and how do we make use of information that we have and use AI to be basically mine that information and to put out content that could really get us that next wave of growth, right? So for us, it's very imperative to make sure that our decisions land right more often than wrong, because, hey, we have a very small room to go wrong, right? So that means that we are that much more inclined towards data and to look at insights to be able to get where we want to get to.
Got it. But say a follow-up question to that. So when you talk about language-specific insights, are there any specific models, or are there any, is there any drastic change in terms of how you look at data? And if no, then it's completely
Of course we do, and I'll explain how, right? So typically what happens is, for a larger player, when they look at a language, they're looking at Telugu as a language or Tamil as a language, and they think that it's one size fits all, right? But for us, that's the only playing field that we have. That means there is a need for us to go deeper to understand, what are the various cuts that we can kind of get into, right? We talk to family, we talk to young adults, we talk to so many others there. And that means that we need to be that much more agile, and that also means that we need to be able to find those micro segments within the category that we are in, right? So that's where, a lot of the data science comes in for us, to be able to find those real pockets of growth that, probably would have been left unexplored.
No, thank you for explaining that, right? Tejas, from a point of view of, say, gaming, and you take care of monetization aspect there, right? So I just want to understand, say, in terms of maximizing the monetary value for you as a business, and I mean, one of the things which I've read is important for a gaming industry is the habit creation part in the first 7 days, right? So how do you look at AI helping you with respect to increasing the LTV per user, or say impacting the initial journey of a user, which is the first 7-day journey for a user to be on the gaming platform and then stick onto it, right? So just your thoughts on that.
So on the gaming side, actually what happens is that I feel we end up being a little bit too advanced on gaming because it's slightly less complicated, right? In terms of the amount of variations that you have there. Especially at our end, it's like, you just need to worry about the mobile app. You don't really need to worry about desktop. You don't need to worry about, TV. You don't need to worry about anything else. So marketing in general also becomes easier. Looking at what the user is also doing becomes also slightly more easier because you don't have different places to really track that user onto. In terms of how can you use AI, AI actually has been around in various ways. It's hyped up now because the consumer is now able to use AI in a much more free-form way versus what it always has been available. Right. So, for example, the recommendation part that you talked about, right? That is AI. A lot of ML that goes on in the back end that comes back to give you certain pricing. That is all AI. So on the gaming side, for example, as Vivek pointed out earlier, right, you have too many data points that you can actually collect. You don't need everything. But having a lot of data points also enables you to create personalizations and segments and cohorts that when fed into AI can help you create a much better personalized journey for every user. So imagine you going into Candy Crush, right? And the first level is a starter level. The second level is actually suitable only for you to play. The IAP pricing that you get in the game is suitable for you. Like you might be okay to pay a $9, pay for 9.99, but I might be okay to pay for a 14.99. Vivek might be they'll be like, hey, you know what, this guy can actually afford $50. Right? Rakesh might be like someone who's, absurdly wealthy and he's like, hey, you know what, I just want to unlock 100 levels right now itself. So you can't do that unless you have a lot of data points. You can't do that unless you can actually feed it in and create a personalized service backend on a per user journey basis, right? Similarly, on the reactivation part of making the person engaged, imagine looking at what the users, how they kind of interact in the game over the last 7 days for let's say the last 6 months, and you kind of figure out the model figures out, hey, you know what, this is the profile of the user, and their most active time is around these times. And the last time that he was online was 2 days back. He generally comes and plays every 24 hours. I need to send out a push notification. Versus you doing it manually, or versus you trying to build out a cohort, or versus you trying to segment it. Because even on a segment basis, it's still going to be 1,000 users, 2,000 users, something as deep as you can go. But it's still going to be, and it's a lot of manual effort. However much you automate, every segment has to still be done manually. So using AI to do it can get rid of a lot of manual effort that goes in to improvise on that, and you can use that resource to do something even better, right?
Actually, thank you for explaining that. In fact, some of the things that you mentioned are also the things that we are investing in terms of the product development. And I see that the time's up. So thank you so much for really explaining the impact of AI on the different businesses, right? And I'm sure, because of the time we had, we could cover the layers of the initial layers of the discussion. But I'm sure that the audience might have more questions, and if they do, we can take those questions separately outside as well, right? So thank you so much